All right. Good morning, and welcome as we have everyone else to join us in. The purpose of our meeting today is for us to check in and see how things are going with your principal mentee. So thank you again for joining us on this Friday. As many of you know, I am Emily Gagnon. I've had the pleasure of working with several of you. I am your host today with my co-host Janelle. So again, welcome. Let's begin by sharing some good news as in traditional NHA fashion. So you may unmute your mic or pop something into our chat box here.
Well, I went yesterday to my mentee school. We had a really good visit and really good connection time, as well as opportunity to help her get more comfortable with the NHA way.
Oh, that's so great. That is really great. Thanks for sharing. So you went over to Amy's school. You two are pretty close, right? In terms of
probably 40 minutes.
Okay. Oh, and thank you too, Steve, because you don't even have school today for joining us. So thank you. All right. Who else would like to share something good with us this morning?
I can share. My news has nothing to do with education. I had the privilege of going to the Mary J. Blige concert last night with my best friend, and I had a ball. So that's some good news. I'm still beaming from last night. So
we're lucky you're at work today too, Alicia.
I know.
Right? Oh, I heard her concert is great. I'm definitely jealous. Yes, I think Kira just went in Detroit when it was there. Here on our team. Oh, I'm glad you had that experience. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else care to share anything? Haven't seen anything pop into the chat either.
Hey, Emily, today we're having our Prevail picnic outside. So we have lunch. We take everybody outside. Parents can join us on the field back there, bring snacks and stuff. And all the kids bring blankets and sunglasses and hats. We just kind of make it like a great picnic day for everybody. And then we kind of finish off the day. So then later on in the year, if you'd like to take your class out for a picnic, you know how to do it. And we don't have to take everybody. So all the kids are all fired up today. It's good. A lot of smiles coming in this morning.
Oh, that's so fun. What kind of food?
So today we just went with the food service. It's actually hamburgers today. So it kind of worked out perfectly. All the kids are, And then I know I've seen some bags of chips come in, some other stuff. And I know some parents are bringing some stuff. So real easy and just a lot.
Yeah. That is easy, but so fun too. So that's great. Thank you for sharing. All right. Well, let's take a peek at this next slide. The squirrels. On this squirrel scale, tongue twister there. How are you feeling today? So go ahead and drop your number in the chat. Let's see. How is everyone feeling today? All right, Tammy. Oh, okay. Is this the squirrel like, thank God I'm at Friday? Aaron, I'm wondering what you're up to over there. Okay. 2 from Alicia. All right. Roxanne. Okay. All right. Couple of 6s. Everything is going okay over there. And so using these type of scales with your mentees, why would we do this? What's the purpose of us all looking at squirrels this morning? What do you think? You can unmute or share in the chat.
Maybe if they don't feel like sharing as much, you can get a better idea if you look at their picture to ask questions to pull out of them how or why they're feeling that way.
Yes. Safe way to express feelings, and just as Tammy said, to pull some ideas out. So looking at our 6s, does someone want to share why they're feeling at a 6 this morning? Yeah, a couple.
That squirrel looks cold.
And you're chilly, Roxanne?
It's pretty chilly in New York today.
I love that. Okay. Oh, that's great. Do you have a sweater on over there?
I do. I have a whole
Okay.
shawl on.
Oh, that's great. Ira, were you the other 6?
Yeah, I chose a 6 just because the squirrel looks a little tired, and I got over COVID relatively recently, so just a little COVID tired,
Okay.
but good. It was between that and the happy 8 squirrel because I'm over COVID and I'm back at work, so it was really kind of a toss up.
Got it. Got it. Thank you for sharing. Erin, I'm wondering why you picked that 9. Like, I have an idea, but let's see. What are you thinking? I think Erin had the 9. He had to step away.
I'm
Okay.
always a 9 on Friday.
Oh, like, ooh, I can't wait to see what's gonna come to my weekend.
It could fluctuate between a 1 and an 8. Well, 8 is usually Thursday, and Friday is, and coupled with a great day that we had yesterday. We had to visit with the team Ebeling principals, who all came over to observe some instruction in the classrooms and gave us the feedback in terms of routines, procedures, expectations, use of curricular tools, the whole 9, and very favorable feedback. So that contributed to my 9 as well.
That is great. I love it. I love that. So as you can see, just by asking questions, we're learning a lot more about the principals who've joined us on this call today, right? And that was not anything that I was actually thinking about. So very interesting. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. So using, like we said, a scale to see how people are feeling really can open up some dialogue and get people to start talking and sharing some things that they may not otherwise say. If you ask them, how's it going? And they say, fine, kind of cuts off the conversation there, right? So way to open up and get them to reflect a little bit more. All right, so our purpose today, like I said, is for the check-in, but during this session today, we're going to cultivate the mentor and mentee relationship. We are going to offer some time for networking for all of you, and then we're going to review upcoming topics and development opportunities. And this is how we're going to accomplish that. We're going to compare traditional versus educative mentoring. We're going to view and plan for an effective initial mentor and mentee meeting, which several of you have already had mentor meetings already, with just some best practices there. And then we're also going to review my little project entitled the Mentor Learning Track. So we will get to that at the very end of our time today. So the first section is on your development. So take a moment here, and I would like you to read through the traditional and educative mentoring. So with traditional and educative mentoring, this slide is based on research of one of my teammates who several of you know, Jess Engel. Her research really focuses on new teachers and improving their practices, but you can make a lot of connections to this with our new principals, right? So as you read through, and as you read through these 2 columns of traditional and educative mentoring, I want you to think about how these 2 types of mentoring are different. So you can add some ideas into the chat box about how educative mentoring is a little bit different from types of mentoring that perhaps you have experienced your own self. So you can add those ideas into the chat, or you can unmute and share out loud. Again, the question is, how is educative mentoring different from what you've experienced? Or if you've experienced either of these, if you can talk to us a little bit about that. Alicia shared in the chat, thank you, that educative is a more reflective approach. Amy shared it grows the mentee and the mentor. Yes, that's very important. Erin, comprehensive and authentic. And the educative is mentee focused. Have any of you experienced either the traditional or educative mentoring in your principal journey? Sabrina shared it's actually coaching, not just checking in. Yep. And digging deeper into reflection for true growth and learning. Yep. And again, that checking in versus growth oriented. So if you think about the traditional column as like a buddy, right? Traditional mentors are temporary. They help you like with quick things like, where can I find the evaluations, or where do I find rubrics, or how do I use the copy machine, right? Like all of those pieces. They help you with those orientation type items. But when you switch over to that educative mentoring, those mentors have a planned meeting. They help grow the mentee, and in growing them, may also grow for themselves. And mentors support mentees for a longer time. So again, thinking of that traditional mentor is kind of like a peer buddy, right? They help you out when you're starting, and then that kind of like weans out. Whereas what we're trying to do is becoming more educative mentors to really get them to dig into their thinking and helping them to grow. So totally forgot about my extra things here, but again, the disposition of inquiry, that continual cycle of asking questions, understanding that leadership is complex, right? It's not a one size fits all, and it can look different depending on your school type and in your situations and things that are going on there. And again, understanding that learning can also come from our mentee. So I want you to think of it as a mentor being a thought partner. And I'm very fortunate to have my mentor on my call with me today, Janelle. And I rely on her often for being my thought partner. So let's just take a moment to review this definition here. So as I read through this definition, does Janelle challenge my thinking? You bet. Does she make me think about different ideas and ways to improve and change? You betcha, right? She makes me think a lot sometimes, and that helps me to grow. So as you're working through being that thought partner for your mentee, it's important to keep in mind that there's a lot of mistakes that are really easy for us to make. And it's not that we're doing these things intentionally, right? It's just that we're trying to help out our mentee. So sometimes these things may happen. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the common mistakes that mentors make. And so, 1 second here, because I have this. And as you finish reading that article, go ahead and type something in the chat box that's resonating with you around these common mistakes that mentors make. All right, and we have some items popping into our chat box. So jumping to solve problems for the mentees. Yes. Sabrina said telling them what to do. Iron shared problem solving for the mentee rather than cultivating problem solving skills. Yes. I think you've taken Steve's response and just developed that a little bit here too, right? Allowing the mentee to uncover and have some of those light bulb moments, right? Like we're getting them to do the thinking. We've been there, we've solved similar problems, but this is their situation and we need to help develop that problem solving skill within themselves. What else? Exactly, Giovanna. Don't steal their productive struggle. Yes. And sometimes, you know, time can be one of those beasts, right? Because we're in a hurry or we may not have enough time. So, yes. Okay, some additional thoughts are popping into the chat here. Not providing the answers, but helping them find the answers. And coaching versus mentoring is interesting, right? Yes, and Melanie shared that as well. Yep. When we give them the answers instead of them thinking through their options, we're not really helping them. Then they just know, hey, let me just call my mentor. They're going to answer this for me. They're going to help me solve all my problems. And yeah, you're not their coach. And the best part is you're not their evaluator either. So that should make them really comfortable in sharing some of the things that are going on and in problem solving through that. Thank you all for diving into that a little bit. So as we continue, this mentor is a thought partner. We want to be careful that, again, and this was shared several times, that we're not the problem solver, right? It's not our problem to solve. It's the mentee's problem that needs to be solved, and they should be the ones to solve it with maybe some guidance from you by asking some questions. And then when we take on too much ownership, like, how can I assist you, but I'm not going to do this for you, right? Like, I'm not going to start calling people and making these connections. You may suggest, hey, why don't you reach out to your business partner? But you are not the person that's going to reach out to the business partner on their behalf. And then finally, this coaching instead. So all of you are, you know, amazing principals. Your directors have selected you to mentor one of our new principals. So just remembering that you have the confidence in you and just continue to ask those follow-up questions to guide them to making their decisions. And so when we do each of these pieces, when we are asking them questions and saying, how can I assist you, but not solving the problems for them, we become that thought partner for our mentees. So as I've shared, a lot of you have already had at least one, sometimes several meetings already with your mentee. So as we look at this, the meeting agenda, right? Sometimes you may just pick up the phone and have a conversation and there isn't necessarily a plan. So it's really good when you're meeting with your mentee to have a plan. And one of the ways to make sure that you are doing this is through having a meeting agenda. So are any of you currently using a meeting agenda, or what practices have you been using? Can you go ahead and either raise your hand to unmute, or you can share in the chat box, like, what are some of those best practices that you're currently using? Go ahead, Jen. Thank you.
Hi, yes, I am using a similar meeting agenda to what I'm using with my deans. And so I use OneNote for all of my meeting agendas to just help keep track of notes and things that are going on. I've had 2 one-on-one meetings with my mentees so far. So the first one was just getting to know them because one, I don't know it all. The other, I have known, but just getting to know them a little bit more personally. And then just that first one was just, what are your needs overall, just to kind of set the stage. So the last one I just touched base on a couple of things. One was what goal area they're working on and what they specifically wanted support with. So I touched base on that in my agenda last month. And then because we were all working on our ABCD goals, I touched base with them on that area just to see what are your areas of focus, what's your action plan looking like, and what questions do you have, and how is this targeting your goals? So we just reflected on that together, and I asked them some questions around their goal areas.
That's great. And I'm seeing a lot of connections to this meeting agenda that I have displayed on the screen here too, right? You ask them their most pressing concern, like what is your mentee's greatest need, and helping that person to work through that concern and those problems. And I like the connection to the ABCD, right? Because a lot of that can really seem overwhelming, especially when you're a new principal and you're learning all the things. So having that focus, I'm sure, was definitely helpful as well. Thank you again for sharing. And Sabrina, using the principal at a glance packet to determine agenda items in my coaching plan. Excellent. Yes, the document that you created to keep the most important things at the forefront. That's a great practice. Thank you for using that, Sabrina. All right. So with a setting, if you haven't been using a meeting agenda, it's a best practice to use one. So again, a meeting agenda, like where you're stating the purpose, like why are we meeting? I'm already meeting with my DSQ and I have a coach. Like what's the point of us having this meeting, right? And then getting to know you, as Jen shared, one of her first meetings was kind of like, hey, this is who I am, and working on that opportunity to build trust, right? So it's really important too during this time to ask about your principal's background, right? They're not coming to us just with no experiences. They have a lot of experiences, and we can lean into those experiences as we help to guide them on their principal journey. Also, norms. So how often are you going to meet? So it's important to establish that so that they can prepare. Are you meeting once a month? Do some of your principal mentees want to meet with you bi-weekly? And then in between, you're having a, text check-in with them. So establishing that cadence of meetings is something that you can accomplish during that norms time. And then getting into their most pressing mentee concern. So asking them, what would you say is your most pressing concern? What do you need some help with there? And then lastly, following up. So when are you going to meet next? Okay, so that is a great way to establish that meeting agenda and to ensure that we're meeting all of their needs. Aaron, go ahead. I saw you had a hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to add that from an agenda standpoint, I have a structure that's very similar to what you have here. However, in my first connection, it was more of getting to know you, because one of the mistakes we can make as leaders and as mentors is to dive right in, right, to formal things. And so from an informal standpoint, they don't know me. I don't know them. They may have heard of me. And so spending that time to establish that relational capacity, it was critically important, because now that sets the tone for what these other sessions are going to look like. I mean, you don't jump right into teaching and learning, right? You set the tone with classroom culture, building those positive relationships and routines and procedures. So I took that same approach here, just in terms of, because I don't believe you're going to be able to effectively mentor someone you have no relational capacity with. And so that was critically important for me to launch it that way.
I love that. Yes. And as Alicia said, great point, right? I like the connection to the classroom framework and what we're doing in our schools, right? Culture is the focus for the first 6 weeks. And so that is very important. You summed that up nicely. I feel like I planted you into this meeting. Thank you for that. That was a great summary and awesome reflection for us to really work to establish those relationships. Those relationships mean a lot, right? Because if they're not going to trust you and they don't feel comfortable sharing things with you, then you're not going to be able to grow them, right? So thank you again for sharing, Erin. And let's get into your role, which some of you have already been sharing as a mentor. You're asking those open-ended questions. You're providing your mentee with the think time. So I had a coach once, and it would be so quiet, right? And I was like, okay, I just know that she's going to say something, and she never would. I was like, great, I guess I have to talk. So that awkward silence, let it sit for a minute, and the mentee will begin speaking. You want to paraphrase to clarify and show that you're understanding and making sure that you've received the message correctly. And you're offering those non-judgmental statements about leadership behaviors, right? Yes, we're leaders, but we've been in their shoes before, and everything that we do is not going to be perfect. So we want to also model those positive interactions with our mentee here. So remember, as you're working through your meetings with your mentee, to stay curious, ask those questions, and come with a plan. Don't wing it. Have a purpose. All right, and now we're going to get into our second part of our meeting, which is networking. So in just a moment, Janelle's going to put you in a breakout room, and this is an opportunity to talk with other principal leaders, such as yourself, to share what are some things that are going well in your current practice, and what are some of your challenges. And as you share the challenge, we're looking for the members in your group to share some ideas to remedy those challenges as well. Okay, so something that's going well, a challenge, and an idea to remedy. And we're going to give you about 10 minutes in this breakout so that everybody in your room has an opportunity to share. And when you come back, I'm going to look for someone from each group to share something that you've discussed in our larger group. All right, Janelle, are you ready? All right, so since I wasn't in breakout rooms this time, I'm really looking forward to hearing either something that you shared or someone else shared that's going well, or a challenge that you're currently experiencing and how someone suggested you could fix it. So you can either use our lovely chat box, or I would love to hear your voices for our conversation. So raise your hand, unmute, and share. All right, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
So one of the things we talked about is kind of a common thread of, we get questions logistically, we can go ahead and solve them, point where things are in Oracle or MyNHA or SLE. But the philosophical questions, or the how should I respond to this parent or this dean or this teacher, the easy way out is just to say, this is what I would do, or this is what you should do. But by responding in questions to get them thinking is really the better long-term play. So we kind of all agreed to that, rather than just being responsive to, well, I would do this and this and this. That might work for us, it might not work for them, or it's the easy way out for them to just have us tell them what to do.
I love that. So true. Making that connection back to our Common Mistakes Made by Mentors article, right? Excellent. And a really good question that you can use as always, and what else, right? To dig a little bit deeper, and what else? And it also lets you know, because you may start with their most pressing concern. What they think is their most pressing concern may actually be layered. And so by asking, and what else, you really dig deeper, and you can discover what the real issue is, and then ask other questions to help them solve that.
That could really be a symptom of what's really going on, not
exactly.
Not
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you for sharing, Steve. And who else? Because how many breakouts did we have, Janelle? 4? 4. All right, so Steve was in one group. So someone from another group. What group were you in, Steve? 2. Okay, so someone from 1, 3, or 4. You're on. You know, this is why I'm gonna have to pop in.
I'll talk.
Okay, thanks, Sabrina.
No problem. I know the awkward silence. I was like, I'm not going to make you do that. All right. So I think that the reason maybe you're not getting responses is because what we talked about is like we haven't done a ton yet, you know. Everybody's just met with their mentee for the first time a few weeks ago. I was talking about, like, I've done it twice because mine are Colorado principals. So they started in August. So I started in August, but I think we don't have a lot of conversations because of that. But so some things that are, you know, going well is, like, for my mentees, they ask me for, like, all my resources. So I know you just had us read an article that was like, don't just hand them things. But I think this is a little different because, you know, Emily, because you just came out of the principal role, like, why are we recreating the wheel? Like, I know for me, like Jen Connolly's on this call, when we create something, we're sharing it with each other because why are we all doing the same work? So that's what I'm doing with those principals, is sending them everything. So, like, one of the principals said to me, I really need athletic director documents, budgets. So I just sent her the whole Google Drive, and, like, then she can create from there. So I think that's going well, the sharing of resources, which led me to be like, hey, Janelle, I know you did a great job with the live binder, but maybe we should have, like, a tab somewhere where we all can upload, like, resources like that. So we're not all reinventing wheels. That would be kind of fun, right? And and I think the challenge is right now is because there's a new relationship and we haven't built a great rapport yet. Just because it's new, I think that the vulnerability is lacking with new principals because they don't want to act like they don't know something or they want to just figure it out themselves, you know? So I think we'll get there, but it's hard to really comment too much on this because we just started.
That's a very good and valid point, Sabrina. And I thank you for sharing that. Right. And yeah, sharing the resources is perfect. And that's okay. It's when they have some of those deeper questions or how do I fix this, right? Where we want to get them to think to solve those things. All right, Giovanna, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to come behind Sabrina because she was my mentor as a new principal, and that really was what I need. Oh, sorry, what I needed the most was the resources. I was drowning, and so she shared everything with me, and it really set me up for success. And in our group, we were talking about kind of like that's what's going well, also building relationships, getting to know them. But then our challenge is going to be that next step, taking our mentoring to the next level, which is thus being pre-planned, having that agenda, and more of a structure so we can support them, but still having time to have that conversation of what are your main concerns? What do you need from me? So just breaking up that time is our next thing of just making it more structured. But I will say that is going well with the resources. And as a new principal, I needed that the most. So thank you, Sabrina, when you were my mentor.
Well, Giovanna, we have something in common because Sabrina was my dean mentor too. Look at you, Sabrina. All right. And I really appreciate that. And Sabrina, too, I also like the idea of additional things that we can add into the live binder, Janelle. So you and I could talk about that a little bit later, like additional things that you're finding. And Sabrina, perhaps if you add that like athletics idea, because I have a survey at the end of this, that would be something that we can look into as well. So thank you. Anyone else have some final thoughts as we finish up our networking segment here? All right. All right, so we're going to take a look at past and future topics. So this is where our new principals have been. So as you all know, your new principal is in the New Principal Academy, which is our year-long program. So these are some of the things that they have been learning about thus far. So building relationships, that leadership pipeline. A lot of our new principals, we want to make sure that they're not clogging the pipeline and they're not acting as a fifth dean, which a lot of them are having some struggles with, right? So how do you not act as a fifth dean? You're the leader of the Dean Team 1. Inspecting and prioritizing, there's a lot, especially at the beginning of the year. We talked about that fire hose effect, like everything is coming at them. So how do they figure out which things are the most important and have to be completed now versus this can wait till a little bit later? It's important, but it's not a must do in the moment. And then behave with care. So they had a great virtual session with Jess Glass and Janelle on behave with care and the resources that are available to them there. So that's some of the topics that they've been covering. And you all have access to the NPA link, which will show you all of the content and items that they've been receiving. Okay, and so now for our lovely, my project creation, Janelle is going to place in the chat the mentor learning track. So go ahead and click on that link there. And as you click on this mentor link, I want you to place things that you notice about the mentor learning track into our chat box, right? And so looking at this, we're seeing that there's embedded resources for support, structured similar to the instructional strategies guide. There's a focus on vulnerability and resiliency, critical for success, the videos and resources, sequential nature that supports your growth as a mentor as well. There's a mix of virtual and in-person meetings, a manageable schedule. All right, so as you take a look at the Principal Mentor Learning Track, you are going to notice the things that you have mentioned here, right? What you're going to see toward the left columns are the content for the new principals, right? So what they're getting and their meeting dates. You're also going to see mentoring topics. So those are items that you can check on with your new principal. So, hey, I see that you learned about this. Tell me more about building your team one, etc. Then over to the right is where your development opportunities come in. So these are ideas to enhance your current practices and when we're meeting. So we have a total of 4 check-ins. And then in the months between, what you're going to see is some learning there for you. Also at the bottom of the page are resources. So this connects to a mentor folder where all of this stuff can be found. So these are items that perhaps you want to star. The NPA Google Drive folder, which is where Janelle is putting everything for our new Principal Academy goes into there. So if you want to see what the new principals are getting, of course, the Principal Live Binder, which is also a tile on My NHA. And then the new Principal onboarding website is content really from the beginning of the year. That was their pre-work before the program started. So those are all of the items that you can find on there. Also, after these meetings are done, the recordings will be linked in here as well. So if you have something that comes up and you have to leave a little bit early, you can catch up on what we've talked about. But I'm trying to remember, I think it was Sabrina who was talking about that vulnerability piece. And so that is content for next month for you to review and to kind of develop and share some of those ideas with your mentee. All right, so let us continue here. Are there any questions about the learning track as well? So I'm wondering, did you notice that the track only goes until November? And there is a reason for that. So in order for us to be able to grow our group, I want for you all to say, hey, these are some of the topics perhaps that you're interested in. And so I do have a survey that I'm going to, hopefully this is the right one, drop into the chat. And there's only 3 questions on this. So if you can take a moment to click on this Google survey, and you can just add any ideas that you have in here, you know, perhaps topics that you're interested in learning more about in order to grow our group. As you know, I did just leave the principalship, but I was only in there for 3 years. I've been a leader for a while, but I'm interested in how I can help to grow you and look for some of those resources that perhaps you are interested in learning more about. So take a moment. There's just really 2 must-answer questions and a 3rd one for any suggestions or ideas that you have. Sabrina, that would be the place where you could add the live binder idea in, just so I can have that captured. So go ahead, I'm going to mute and give you just about 2 minutes here to go ahead and answer that survey for me. And as we close today, I leave you with this launch. A mentor empowers a person to see a possible future and believe it can be obtained. And that's by Sean Hitchcock. So for our next meeting, please make sure that you visit the Mentor Learning Track and review the content on vulnerability and resiliency. And then bring your ideas with you to our next check-in meeting on December 2nd.